Muktar and the Camels. Muktar and the Camels is written by Janet Graber and illustrated by Scott Mack. Muktar lives in an orphanage on the border between Kenya and Somalia. And here is Somalia, and here is Kenya. He daydreams about his old life with his family when he helped to tend camels. One day a visitor arrives traveling with camels and bearing books. Muktar quickly discovers that one of the animals is injured. This is his chance to prove himself. If there is anything Muktar knows, it is camels. Bare feet slap across the hard earthen floor of the Iftin orphanage as children gather in the dining hall to gobble down bowls of warm posho. Sweet-smelling steam rises from Muktar's bowl and tickles his nose. "Eat up, lazy fellow," calls Mr. Hassan, their teacher. But Muktar gazes out the window across the dusty landscape. He remembers a time before drought and war engulfed his homeland, a time when his family roamed Somalia, their worldly possessions strapped to mighty camels. Muktar had gathered camel dung to fuel campfires. His mother beat thick, sour camel milk into cheese, spun camel hair into thread, wove the thread into clothing. Over and over, his father said, "Camels first, always camels first. Camels are treasure." "Stop daydreaming, lazy fellow," Mr. Hassan claps his hands. "Don't cause trouble," whispers Mukhtar's best friend, Ismail. Muktar stirs his posho with sticky fingers. "My mother and father rest in graves beneath piles of stones." He scoops the porridge into his mouth. "I miss my parents. I miss wandering." He stares at the acacia trees dotting the scrubby land. "And I miss camels." "The world has changed," says Ismail. "I will learn the new ways." "Pah, how can you? There are no books." "Silence, Muktar," calls Mr. Hassan. "Time for class." The children follow Mr. Hassan into the dusty courtyard and squat in the shadows cast by the sun-baked walls. Mr. Hassan scratches squiggly letters on a blackboard. A dry wind ripples rivulets of sand over Mukhtar's toes. Words hum and buzz in his head like a swarm of bees. Muktar fingers the gnarled root he keeps in the pocket of his shorts. "Take it, Muktar," his father whispered before he died. "Use it wisely." The root is all Muktar has left of the old ways. A blazing sun beats down. Mukhtar's eyelids droop. He dozes. Muktar dreams of a large camel, its brown eyes fringed with double lashes. He brushes dust and mud from its shaggy coat. He slips a sugar lump between its lips, tough as elephant hide. He climbs up behind the hump and feels the camel's rear legs rising, pitching him forward, forward, forward. Chunk, 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 wooden bells clang and clink. Foot, foot, foot. Giant feet whisper in the sand. Muktar stirs and opens his eyes. 3 camels, tail to bridle, lope through the thickets toward the courtyard. "Greetings," calls the driver next to number 1 camel. "I am Bishar Mohammed, librarian, bringing you books from Garissa." "Camels," gasps Muktar. "Books," breathes Ismail. "A miracle," shouts Mr. Hassan, clapping his hands. Number 2 camel carries steel poles, tarps, and woven mats. Number 3 camel bears wooden boxes slung on either side of her hump. The children flock around the camels like fluttering hoopoe birds. Order! Order! Sit! Immediately! Shouts Mr. Hassan. Ismail, Muktar, you are the eldest. Help Mr. Mohammed. Shivers of delight skip down Mukhtar's spine. He savors the sour smell of the camels as he prods tent poles into the hard ground. Mr. Mohammed ties tarps. Ismail lays scarlet and gold mats beneath the awning. Unload the books, says Mr. Mohammed. Spit spot. Mukhtar strokes the shaggy hair of number 3 camel. Shh, 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 he orders. The camel dips her great head and sinks to her knees with a groan. Mukhtar frowns. Number 3 camel has a deep cut in one of the 2 fleshy pads on her right forefoot. Please, sir. Hurry, boys, hurry, shouts Mr. Mohammed. No time to waste. Soon there are piles of books scattered all over the woven mats. Mukhtar, guard these cantankerous beasts while I supervise the library. But Mr. Mohammed, sir, number 3 camel. Not now, boy. I'm very busy. But how can Mr. Mohammed return to Garissa with an injured camel? Mukhtar frets. Camels first. Always camels first. His father's golden rule. Ush, ush, ush. The camels follow Mukhtar. They slurp cool water at the pump. Mukhtar fills a bucket and leads them to the edge of the courtyard. The camels graze on a thicket of thorn bushes. Mukhtar rubs his hands down the spindly leg of the hurt camel. She growls deep in her throat and nips Mukhtar's arm. Shh, 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 he mutters. The camel drops onto her knobby knees. He splashes water over the deep gash in her pad. Cut on a rock, Mukhtar whispers, caressing her long nose. Mukhtar pulls out the twisted root from inside his pocket. He bites off a piece and chews and chews. When his mouth is filled with paste, he spits the tart mush into the camel's wound. Then he removes his shirt, tears it into strips, and binds the giant 2-toed foot. All better, Mukhtar hums into the camel's furry ear. Bowls clatter in the dining hall. Idle chatter drifts through the windows. Mukhtar smells matoki, his favorite meal. How his stomach rumbles for steamed banana. But he is responsible for the camels. The immense animals rest in the shade of the thorn bushes, chewing on cud. They belch and grunt. Mukhtar sprawls in the shade of their heaving bellies. The tangy smell of fresh excrement makes him drowsy. He dreams he is collecting dung for the cooking fire once more. He dreams that his mother's simmering pot fills the encampment with the rich smell of spicy stew. He dreams of sleeping on a mat of straw beneath the stars. Wake up, lazy fellow, wake up! Mr. Hassan shakes Mukhtar's shoulder. Mukhtar rubs his eyes. Time for me to go, shouts Mr. Mohammed, striding across the courtyard. Mukhtar scrambles to his feet. Please, sir, number 3 camel injured her foot. Pish posh, Mr. Mohammed slaps his thigh. What am I to do? I tried to tell you, Mukhtar mumbles. What good is that to me now? Mr. Mohammed scowls. Please, sir, it is fixed. Mukhtar points to the bandaged foot. He knows camels, explains Mr. Hassan. He's a nomad. How old are you, boy? Asks Mr. Mohammed. Almost 12 years, sir. Trustworthy? He's a decent fellow, says Mr. Hassan. Bit of a dreamer. Is that so, Muktar? Mr. Mohammed stares. And what do you dream? Mukhtar's heart misses a beat. No one has ever asked him such a question. He crimps his fingers into the coils of coarse brown hair on number 3's neck. He dreams of treasuring camels like his father, and his grandfather, and his great-grandfather, back through all the generations of the Somali people. Please, sir, he tugs the librarian's arm. I wish to tend camels. Do you now? Mr. Mohammed smiles. Muktar nods. Mr. Hassan, I need an assistant, says Mr. Mohammed. Someone to care for these ornery beasts. Someone like this boy. Myself, I'd rather drive a truck, but trucks are useless in the desert. Muktar longs to ride again, to feel a camel beneath him, unfolding and stretching and gliding across the sand. He holds his breath. Take him, dear fellow, take him. Mr. Hassan claps his hands. Muktar leans into the camel's belly. Ismail pads across the courtyard with a plate of matoki. I am to care for the camels, Muktar whoops. I shall miss you, my friend, says Ismail, offering the fragrant fruit. And I you. Muktar slips morsels of sweet banana into his mouth. But I can visit you each time I bring books to the orphanage. Yes, indeed, says Ismail. With books, I will learn to be a teacher. Books delivered by Muktar and the camels. Muktar claps his hands. Not a lazy fellow anymore. Author's note. In the last years of the 20th century, the country of Somalia was devastated by drought, famine, and vicious civil war. Thousands of Somali nomads fled for their lives, and camps and orphanages sprang up along the border between Kenya and Somalia. Garissa is a dusty enclave of 200,000 people in Kenya's northeastern province. From Garissa, the Kenyan National Library Service dispatches a 3-camel convoy 8 times a month to deliver books to schools and orphanages in the hinterlands, where bandits roam and roads are few.